We expect the government to remain committed to fiscal consolidation, and as such, we expect the government to announce a lower fiscal deficit target for next year compared to the 3.2% for this year. Now, from the perspective of the sovereign ratings, we are not fixated on a specific level of fiscal deficit. More important to us is that the fiscal trend is correct, and there are concrete measures to anchor the fiscal strategy going forward. And we would say that the GST, as well as cutting of fuel subsidies, is definitely a step in the right direction with respect to ensuring fiscal sustainability in the long run. And for this budget, we hope to see that there will be more concrete measures to contain the rise in emoluments. In the last 5 years, emoluments has been growing on average 9.5% per year. And emoluments itself is huge. It forms 30% of the operating expenditure for the government. We also hope to see more measures to improve fiscal discipline. With that, what I mean is that, for example, the setting up of a rainy day fund, that would be good. Over the years, the government has actually has generally outperformed in terms of revenues. This is good, outperforming revenues, but in terms of when that happens, the government also spends even more. So it would be more prudent if the government were to set aside the extra revenues in a fund which can be used for counter-cyclical purposes. Actually, the inspiration for this fund, it came about from the ratings that we have done in other countries. We have a sovereign rating on Kazakhstan, and we really like the kind of prudence in terms of how they manage it. Over in Kazakhstan, what they do is that all revenues actually get into the fund first, and only a certain amount is taken out and put into the fiscal account for budgetary purposes. And that amount is actually approved by the parliament. Now, if you look at Kazakhstan, they have up to almost close to 40% of GDP in terms of the size of the fund that's built up over just the past few years.
And you think Malaysia has a space definitely to set aside?
I think we can, especially if you look at how the revenues have outperformed the budget over the years. On average, we're talking about exceeding the budget at maybe about 10% or so in the past few years on average. That extra 10% can actually build a very good sizable rainy day fund if you think about it. So give it 4 years, it can actually build up into something respectable. And lastly, ideally, I would also like to see the budget for a 2 to 3 year period as opposed to just a 1 year that we have currently. By having a slightly longer budget, this will give us a better perspective in terms of how decisions made today would affect the government's spending obligations over the medium term. And of course, we expect the budget to also focus on stimulating growth. Growth is definitely slowing down. For this year, RAM, we are expecting growth at 4.9%, and we expect next year's growth to be even slower at maybe 4 to 4.5%. So we would expect the government to put more emphasis on development spending. We are hopeful to see that at least the allocation for development spending should be at the very least 10% higher than what we saw for this year. With respect to alleviating higher cost of living for the people, we are expecting a much bigger brim for next year. This is in line with the government's overall strategy in terms of redirecting broad-based subsidies to more targeted ones. And this will actually improve the efficiency of fiscal spending. Contrary to many other parties, we are not expecting the exempted list for GST to be expanded to alleviate higher cost of living. We think that in the long run, the government will look at simplifying the GST regime. This is just to lower administrative costs and to increase the efficiency of GST as a broad-based tax regime for the government.